today's episode, I will be talking to Nicole Steinbach about the time when joy is rebellion. We will also talk about the key steps on how to learn the skill of bravery. Listen in to hear the rest of our conversation. Before we begin our conversation, here is a quick shout out to the pathologically curious. Check out the Maverick Paradox magazine. It's a digital magazine written by Mavericks for business owners and professionals. You can find the magazine at themaverickparadox.com. The magazine's aim is to provoke maverick leadership everywhere. Welcome to the Maverick Paradox podcast, where we explore what it is to be a maverick and discover effective modes of leadership. I am Judith Germain, and my mission is to propel the maverick mindset into a world where character and integrity will ultimately have a higher premium than personality and bureaucracy. So thank you for joining me on this journey. If you would like to continue with me, then please subscribe to my podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or one of the other popular podcast platforms. And today, my guest is Nicole Steinbach. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Judith. It's wonderful to be here. I'm excited.
Me too. We've got a fantastic topic for the listeners today. But before we get into that, tell me a bit about you.
Yeah, okay. So I am a global career coach and change management consultant. I'm an American who's worked in over 25 countries throughout my career, lived in Germany for 13 years as an adult. So sometimes I identify a little bit more with Germany than I do with the U.S. But I am back in the U.S. with my family. We live in the Rocky Mountains outside of Denver, Colorado. And so for me, when it comes to bravery and the work that I do and my place in the world, it is really founded in a very specific set of beliefs and experiences. And the way I like to describe it is that I deeply, deeply, deeply believe that we are all, by nature, uniquely fierce. And to release that, whatever that is for us, we need the skill of bravery. And the skill of bravery can be built, it can be learned, it can be enhanced. And by doing that, having the skill of bravery, stepping into our fierceness, we can build the career of our dreams and make a global impact while we're at it. And so that's really what I focus my business on, what I spend a lot of my personal time on, but also more importantly, my professional time on. And I'm looking forward to sharing that with you.
Brilliant. Straight away, I'm captivated. You said that bravery is a skill. So What do you mean exactly by that?
Yeah, so bravery is, I say this frequently, is like, because I worked in technology and most of my clients still come out of technology. It's like learning to code. It seems otherworldly at the beginning, and it seems structured, and you can't make it your own, and it's complicated, and you have to be super smart. And then once people actually decide to take those first initial steps, learn a little bit, act, learn a little bit, act, learn a bit, act, and it becomes this circle of learning and taking action, suddenly they're coding, right? And especially now when we have so many supportive tools and techniques and platforms and services to help people code. The same is true for bravery. So when we look at, for example, we look at children learning how to walk. I mean, that's crazy bravery. If you think about how high they have to get up, but they make that choice. And unless somebody tells them over and over and over and over again that they can't do that because it's a natural, brave moment, they're always going to be learning a little bit. Well, first, they're probably going to act. They take an action. They learn from that, and they take an action, and they learn from that. Adults can do the same thing. And it's primarily through that piece of action. And so the way that I break it down for my audience and for the clients that I've worked with over a couple of years is part one is getting really specific. And I like to refer to it as tell it to a great grandma. So make sure it's unique and it's specific and you know what you want to do. I want to code. I want to move abroad. I want to walk, whatever the case is. And then teach it to a kindergartner is part two. And part two is when we behave like kindergartners. And I just happen to have a kindergartner in my house right now. It's my last one. And she does not sit in the lecture and learn and take copious notes and then 6 months down the road take an action. She learns just enough to try. When she tries, she learns. So she tries and then it just, builds forward. And then part three is to own it like a boss. So once that toddler is walking, once that person is coding, once someone commits themselves to a global move or a big career move, it's about making sure that you continue to build those structures, those relationships, and your mindset, quite frankly. And that's why I love your concept of the socialized maverick, because that very much is something that goes into owning it like a boss. Repeat, rewash, repeat, rewash. It's so that's the skill is the bravery skill. The kind of hidden part of that I'm talking more about now that I'm not in the corporate world, is that frequently the skill of bravery is the skill of failure and getting right back up.
That is so interesting, because when I'm doing training, I do like a leadership development program, I talk about, leadership is about being courageous, and it takes courage to lead. And people look at me and I'm saying, because as you said, to be able to make a decision that you commit to and then you act on it is courageous in a society, in a world where people are frightened of being accountable.
Yes.
And and I say the same thing, that courage can be learned. No one is born, no one is born with the ability to not care of the consequences. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. That same toddler knows if it falls over, it's going to hurt itself, but it takes that courageous step, because as you said, no one's told them it's not possible. They see because that's what's great about that analogy, because they see adults walking around, so they know it can be done.
Yes.
They just haven't figured out how yet, and so it's almost like the toddler's acting like a maverick. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
It's like, because I'm like, I can't do that, but I know that person can do that, and if they can do it, and I say, well, I can't do it. Do you know what I mean? What makes them special? I can do that. Every maverick I've ever spoken to has gone, I knew I could do it because someone else is doing it, and I knew I could do better, so that's why I'm doing it. So it makes that difference, and it's and I think it's quite funny when you say that, because it is that kind of step out into, because when you do watch a child learning to walk, sometimes you think they're like maniacs because they just fling themselves forward, and you're like, you're crazy, but they're like determined to do it.
And a lot of the people who began coding, some of them do the same thing. They literally just throw stuff into the system to see if they can break it. And I will say, whenever I get the chance to speak with those people, I ask them just a little bit about themselves. And it genuinely turns out that is someone who's had life experiences that has taught them the joy of failure, the joy of courage, of bravery. And it's something that they step into now. And I know, I've seen it so many times in my life. I know that when people believe that it's a skill that they can build, they will build the skill of bravery. And suddenly they're living a life they can't even imagine. At first, I talked to people, especially when I was still in my corporate job, I talked to people about the impossible. Like, tell me you're impossible. Let's talk about your impossible. I don't feel like, especially when I'm outside of the corporate world and people don't have that construct of a job, the impossible turns people off. And still, by the second session of working with me, somebody is saying, well, what I would really like to be, I'll give you a very concrete example. What I really want to do is have a global career in talent management, but that's actually impossible. I don't have the right background. So fast forward, no joke, within a year, she's signing a contract for a talent management role with a less commute, more money, all of these things, and asking for that specific thing and taking those small actions to have a small learning, they build up. And suddenly, here she is, right? But there's all those small moments and seeing other people doing it. And that leads to getting what you want or finding something even better that you want.
You know what? I smiled when you said that. Well done on that, by the way. But it made me smile because when you said, tell me what's impossible, I was like, nope, I can't think of anything. Like, there must be something that's impossible. No, can't think. And it's like, and I notice is that the people, like, you know, who write for the magazine or who have been on the podcast, and you go, yeah, you know, the real Mavericks, and you say, what do you find impossible? And they just give you this look like, I don't understand what you're saying. I don't get it. What do you mean? Like...
Right, exactly. And so this is something that I share from a gentleman who mentored me. I always name drop the awesome people. His name is Brian Reeves. He lives in Texas now. And I met him when I was really struggling because here I was, I had been at the same company for a long time, most of it in Germany, which is a really direct culture. And now I was in the US and I was struggling because I wasn't at headquarters anymore. So where's the fire I get to work on? Where's the fire? And creating waves, because that's what we do, right?
Yeah.
And he said, Nicole, look around and see who's going to be your role model. Who's going to do this for you? And I said, Brian, I don't know anybody who lives the life that I want. I come from an impoverished background. You know, my family is quite limited. There's a lot going on inside of it. I come from an area of the world that's really suffering under all the wars the United States has, the opioid crisis, the lack of a social network. And then I married into this German family that has like ancestral roots that I don't understand. and here I am, like this international life, parts in Germany. Brian, I don't have anybody. And he said, okay, then imagine who you're going to be that role model for.
Wow, that's powerful.
I am tearing up and that was 3 years ago, because I still do that and I offer that to other people. If somebody hasn't done what it is you want to do it, because you're the inspiration for somebody behind you who has that wish.
Wow, you know what? You must be my twin or something. Because you were saying all this stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I said that. You know, because one of the things I wrote in my book is about socialized mavericks. You know, the whole essence of like maverick leadership is about role modeling change and recognizing that you're a role model. Whether, you know, because as you said, like the toddlers, they're forever watching, and they learn by what, you know, they saw an adult walk, so therefore you can walk. You know,
yes.
And it's, you know, as a woman, you know, we role model what it's like to be a wife or a partner, a mother, a female manager, a female business owner, a human being. You know, we do everything that we do. Other people, it's not saying you should be where people watching, but you are role modeling what it's like to be in that particular role, and that we have a responsibility.
Yeah.
And I think socialized mavericks, it's not something that they wear heavily. It's not something like it's like a burden. It's just an acknowledgement. You know, this is when I'm this, I am telling people this is how you lead. You know, if I'm in church, I'm thinking this is how I worship, or if I go to the synagogue or whatever, you know, wherever you are, you're role modeling, you know, what it is and the thing that you're doing. And I think that's a big difference between quite a lot of conformists and a lot of socialized mavericks, is that acknowledgement that, you know what, I am role modeling change. I am, you know, it's not like, how do I describe it? It's not as if you're walking around going, I am a role model, watch me. That's not what I mean at all, isn't it? It's not, do you know what I mean? It's not like, I'm not saying that. What I'm just saying is that, you know, when you stand up and you're leading a team, your team members might be going, one day I want to be a manager, and they'll be either saying, I want to be like you, or I don't want to be like you.
Oh my gosh, yes. Oh, yes.
And we've
Yeah.
all had bosses where we go, if I ever become a manager, I am not being like you.
Oh, yeah. And also the ones where it's like, okay, these are the 6 things I'm taking from this person. My last longer term manager in the corporate space, his name is Riju Mukhopadhyay, and this gentleman is a listener par excellence. He just sucks it in, and he makes you feel that he's there with you. He's in your space, sharing that with you. And then he brings in the constraints in just such a respectful, strategic manner. And when I decided to go out, I consciously said to myself, I am taking this with me. I am taking this with me. And then another woman who, unfortunately, I never worked directly for her, but I worked with her on a lot of different projects. Her name is Zarina Stanford, and she can see the positive in the worst screw up. Usually I'd say the F word. She can say, okay, look at this. We've learned these 5 things. And I was already doing that to a certain extent, but working with her just amped that to a level that, oh my goodness, I had never considered before. Yeah.
It makes a big difference. Many years ago, there was a master practitioner in NLP was talking to me about leadership, and they wanted to do a modelling exercise with me. So, asking us questions and talking. And then one of the things he came up with was, you role model fun. And I was like, what do you mean? What does that mean? And he said, when you're working with somebody, you show them how to have fun with what they're doing. And it always stayed with me. And I thought it was a bit weird. And then I thought about it. I realised that, again, when I was in the corporate space and I had a team with me, I remember particularly working in a HR department, and also head of HR there. And something had happened, and the team come in all like really sort of, when you have that face and you're like, oh yeah. No. He's like, this is really, really, really bad. And then they say, this happened. And then there was this pause, and I was like, okay, this is the bit they're going to drop me with it, like the worst of the worst. And they went, but that's okay, because what the fun thing is about this is we could do X. And it was like, and I just remember just looking at them and go, oh, I was not expecting that. It was like a new team, but what they'd learned from me is how to turn a disaster into something. Here's some really good learning. This is how we can make it better. And they'd picked it up without me actually teaching that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it made me realise what that guy had said like many years previously. And I was like, oh, I see. And the thing that when you think about it in terms of leadership, people enjoy the work more when they're having fun doing it, even when it's hard to do.
Yes. And I know that I have had times in my career where I was flat out. I was working insane hours, traveling on the turn of the dime. I mean, it was wild. And the team I was on, we were working to solve a crazy self-made problem. And we were having a ball. We were given agency, and we took the agency to break anything and everything to get to a solution that was sustainable. And then at other points in my career, I've been like, okay, I have like half-time work, and they're telling me that development's going, it's coming. I can't, can't implement, can't communicate, can't whatever. And I'm having no fun, but I should have all this extra time, and I'm miserable. I'm utterly miserable. And so that whole fun perspective, it's amazing what we can create, but also what we inspire our teams, our families, our friends, our everything to create when there's joy inside of it. And I'm still getting comfortable with talking about this, so here we go. In this time, joy is rebellion. I mean, we look at what's happening all over the world. Australia's on fire. Massive parts of the world are underwater permanently. We have really scary marches against equity and inclusion and things like that in so many different places in the world. And choosing to be joyful and choosing it takes bravery, it takes fierceness to be joyful in this phase and in this cycle of information and how quickly we get everything. But that's how we're going to create, I deeply believe this, in our own unique ways, we are going to create the world, our children, our great grandchildren, our great nieces, whatever, what they deserve. And it takes that role modeling fun for people to even start to step into that direction.
Wow, joy is rebellion. That's amazing. I stopped listening when you said that because I started to think about it.
Oh, that's
I was just like,
huge compliment.
I just thought, yeah. And I was thinking about what people think about rebellion, and it's all that stuff you see in the news, people with half-covered faces running around burning things. But it's becoming so commonplace, it's just commonplace. It's no longer rebelling, is it? It's just what everybody else is doing. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, okay, seen that. It's so you're right, it's like the opposite is the truth.
Yeah.
I'm really going to think about this.
And while you're thinking about it, I also want to offer, so a gentleman that I met only once, but I follow him passionately with his podcast. His name is Judith Germain, and he wrote a book called On the Other Side of Hope. And it talks a lot about that. So that's where that inspiration comes from. And, when I go back and I haven't been there for a number of years, but when I go back to the place where I was as a small child, I see how powerful joy can be and how infrequently it's utilized. And so and I do believe that this is a bit of that conformist that you write about. I'm doing what I was told to do, and the system is now designed against me, or I can't break through. I was a perfect student in school, but now I'm supposed to think in these new creative, innovative, global ways and just get worn down. Whereas the very powerful and very privileged decision to decide for joy and decide for bravery and to live into whichever, part of the Maverick spectrum one naturally falls or chooses to fall, that's rebellion. That's revolution, and it's what we need.
I'm writing lots of notes, by the way.
Oh, okay. So I just want to let you know that I'm going to be like floating for the next 4 days.
Oh, that's a compliment. Thank you. But I'm just writing loads of notes what you're saying. I think I really love what you're saying, and it's really sparking thoughts for me. And I was thinking that's what Maverick leaders do. They give hope. Yeah. And I don't mean it in this kind of necessarily soft, woolly, woohoo way, as in like it's empty hope. But, it's like one of the things that Maverick leaders do when something needs to happen is that they narrate the story, don't they? So they look at what the company or whatever, the vision and the mission or stuff, and they take all that hard, cold, analytical stuff and they create a story for it. It's something that people can stand behind and get excited about. And then there's hope in that, isn't it? Whether it's hope the company gets to this direction or the individual can move over there. But they seem to be able to capture the very essence of what people need to be able to deliver that thing and provide that hope. And the Maverick leaders do it on a collective basis, but then they also drop down and make sure that every individual that's affected is brought into that hope, and that hope will be something different for that individual, but they'll pay attention to what that is. And I'm thinking that's probably why they're really good leaders and they are followed by so many people, is because they take the time to speak to everybody's individual hope as well as the collective one.
Yeah, it's hope in action.
Hope. That's another one. I'll write that down too.
Hope in action. And this now harkens back a long time ago. But I've heard it recently in some of the, I don't know exactly what it's called. I think it might be called universal basic income that's in place in Norway or someplace in California. What people have been saying and what I was told is when you have a person investing in you with their time, with their resources, when you are so privileged that you can invest in yourself, you are taking a stand and saying, this is hope in action. So yesterday, a young woman called me. Oh my gosh, that made me sound so old. She's not even 30. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but she's like, can we talk? And it was so serendipitous because the person I was supposed to meet was quite ill and couldn't attend, and we had to reschedule. And so I get on the phone with her, and she can't work with me. She's not there yet. She doesn't have the funds to invest in herself at that level. So I gave her 45 minutes of my time and as much insight as I possibly could, because that's hope in action. And so many people have done that for me. I had a horrific speech impediment when I was growing up. And there were so many people who kindly, gently, with love would help me learn how to say the S and the R, would help me recover from a moment of stuttering. Because people didn't need to do that, but that was hope in me. That was bravery that they would support me, especially as like a, in junior high.
So yeah, because I would say that because is hope in action, and as you talk to me, that's leadership. That's someone demonstrating good leadership.
Absolutely agree. Yeah.
So tell me more about bravery then. Is there a number of steps to be brave?
So the way that, and everyone goes into it slightly different. So some of my clients didn't get specific until they were deep into action taking. Especially when someone comes from my clients who come from a quote unquote non-dominant background, whatever that means, if it means economic or where they were born in the world or the religion that they were exposed to. There's a lot of options in the world that we just didn't know. I was a consultant before I knew that there was something called a consultant.
Yeah, I know what you mean. That happened to me too. It's like, oh, there's a name for this, is there?
That's so asking all these questions. Oh, okay, cool. I was told that was being a PETA for a long time. Anyways, and so, but majority of the time, what I do encourage my clients to do is to spend a lot of time getting specific first. For people who are in a transformation phase for the first time on their own, like they are deciding to change something rather than it being changed, or they're doing something, stepping from one phase of their life into another phase of their life. So for example, one of my clients a while ago had never known a working mother, never. She only knew moms who didn't work.
Wow.
And so that, yeah. I mean, very privileged background. And she had seen it on TV, but she had never seen someone live it in her own life. Gosh. And she was doing something her family couldn't support. They wanted to, but they just didn't know how to, and they didn't take those steps of bravery to learn it. So what we do is frequently I give people value cards so that they can work through what are my values, what's most important to me. And I ask them to do that over the entire time we're working together, is just keep playing with your values, because as you become more specific and you unwrap more and more of those layers of what's expected of you, I know that I did it. My husband, most of my clients, most of my friends, we realize, oh wait, status and authority. I was told that mattered. I was told I needed to be a global senior director, and then I was told I needed to be a VP. But that's not actually what I want. I don't really care about status. I was embarrassed to tell people my title because that's just not really me. And so doing those value cards is really important. And then writing it down. This is something that I know when I first started coaching, and I'm only 39 years old, but it's amazing how the world has changed. You didn't have to tell people to write things down because you wrote things down.
Exactly. You know what? That is so funny because it's so true. Yeah.
And now I'm like, no. You don't say it to Alexa. You write it down.
Yeah, it's like you're taking notes, and they're like, don't see any notes being written down. I'll remember. No, you won't.
And there's a whole process around like, how do you write it down? How do you make sure that it's really your goal and things like that? But essentially that's the really important thing, is making sure that you write it and you rewrite it. You write it a couple of times and then you start saying it out loud. Then you start adding numbers. So a client wanted to be a leader, a role model for Asian women worldwide. That is an amazing goal. Let's get more specific, right? So she decided that she wanted to be a CXO at a Fortune 1000. I think it was 2 boards and a certain number of women who she was going to invest in. Like, get real specific, right? Now, if you overshoot that, fantastic. If you realize, like in her case, she realized that the one organization whose board she eventually joined met all of her needs. So she had one organization, not 2. And then it's all about finding those people who really believe in you. And I love to describe this as, these are the folks who hear you're crazy when you're like, this is my stretch goal. I'm going to earn $500,000, right? Whatever it is. And they go, how? These are not the folks that go, how? Right? Like, that's the easiest way to know if these are your folks, if these are your brave folks. Because as you're on your bravery path, you need your brave folks. And the folks who are like, how? Those are good people, right? We're not cutting people out of our life. Nothing like that. It's just who you surround yourself with as you're designing and committing is so important.
Definitely.
So important. And, the Mavericks who are listening to this, the best of those folks are the ones who are going to go, $500,000? 2.5.
Because my response in my head was like, that's so cool, let's go, let's just let's sit down, let's get going, let's make it happen.
How many phone calls do I have to make yeah, exactly. And then that's really when people start talking about it and start telling everybody. And I challenge my clients when they've gotten to that point where they feel really confident, this is exactly what I want. I want to be a CXO, Fortune 1000. I think it was 100 women I'm investing in, and I'm on 2 boards. I challenge them every day to tell 2 strangers, like 2 people who just don't even need to know. Tell your librarian, tell your book
what? That is so true, because if you can't, say, own your, what you believe in, then you don't believe in it. If you're like, what you're passionate about, I'm really passionate about. If you're whispering it, you're not passionate about it.
Yeah, exactly. And that part, I strongly believe in it. I will say, for the skill of bravery, it's a very powerful moment and also a moment of extreme risk.
Also,
too many people who don't have support start telling people, and they feel this rush of achievement, and then they don't continue.
Yeah. Also, I was going to say that the skill of bravery doesn't mean you're not scared.
Scared. Oh my gosh, yes.
It's like that book, isn't it? Feel the fear and do it anyway. It's just like, I'm scared, but I'm doing it. Really scared, still doing it.
Yeah. I like the hashtag do the scary shit. I'm like, yes, not every day. The part where you like start sweating because you're so scared, but stretch yourself every day. Do it. Feel scared and keep doing it. So that's really one of those key moments, like when people start telling it to a grandma or librarian or teacher or grand aunt or whatever, right? Kid. Making sure that you basically instantaneously go into action. So you just learn. It's not being Hermione. Actually, do people say Hermione? How do you pronounce that name?
Hermione.
Hermione? Okay, cool. I was reading the books to my kids and I'm like, I think I'm saying this with a German accent. That's not helpful. Thank you for helping me, Judith. So it's not a moment of being Hermione. It's a moment of learning just enough so that you can take that action and take that action and then learn and then take an action and learn and take an action. And building towards that really specific goal with the numbers, with the present tense that's stretching you, that you've got your brave people supporting you on, you're telling people about, because that's where the movement really begins.
Yeah, and I think that's true, and I think something that you said earlier when you talked about failure, it made me think that socialized mavericks embrace failure that they have planned. So, for example, I'm going to do this thing. I'm not sure whether it succeeds or not, but if it doesn't succeed, I will have learned X, Y, and Z. Okay, that's reasonable. I'm going to do it. That's the failure that socialized mavericks can get behind. If they fail and they haven't thought that failure is a possibility, then that's, oh my gosh, why didn't I plan properly? I mean, if I was going to get, it was like, it's a shock to the system that you failed and you didn't think that was a possibility. That something seriously has gone wrong in your planning. Yeah. And I think once you've planned, and I say plan loosely, I don't mean like the way that some people put 50 million lines of code, as it were, down. It's more like, oh yeah, if this doesn't work, this is the consequence of it not working. Yeah, I can live with that consequence of it not working. I'm going to do it then. That's the kind of planning. And if you haven't had that, it might fail, then you really haven't planned the action properly.
Yes. And that is one aspect that the Germans are amazing at. Mm-hmm. And one of the most I learned so much in my time in Germany, and we're going to go back and live in Germany. But one of the things that was the biggest shock, well, besides the fact that if you invite people for 7, they're ringing your doorbell at 7, wasn't ready for that. It took me a couple of years. But the idea of you plan to fail, and then you work from there. And if your worst case scenario is 35 incorrect steps away, it's all right, right? If your worst scenario is 1 step away, well, then you need to plan. You need to get more support, more resources, more mindset shift, more whatever, so that you can create more steps between your worst case scenario and where you are right now. So when I decided to leave my corporate career and start my own business, my German husband and I, we really talked about what's the worst case scenario? We live in the US, we're on the streets, right?
There's no social support, is there?
No. And then it was okay, all right, so how many things have to go wrong before we're on the streets? And it's 500 steps away. So it's okay.
It makes me laugh because that is such a maverick way of thinking, isn't it? It's so what's the worst thing can happen? Can I survive the worst thing? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, let's do it. Or no, okay, what can I do to make the worst thing not so bad? Well, if I just do this, now can I survive it? Yes. Okay, let's do it.
Exactly. And that's really part of the getting specific, unique goal for the first step of bravery, or for the first part of bravery. Mm-hmm. One thing I always push on is what happens if you don't even try. And when someone's like, well, I mean, it'd be a bummer. I'm like, okay, that's not your goal, friend. That's somebody else's goal. You've been told you need that goal, but that's not your goal, right? Because it's got to be that thing where you're like, man, if I don't even try, I'm going to be 55 years old and trying now to become a professional gymnast.
Or it's more I was thinking it's more like, if I don't even do it, then who am I? Do you know what I mean? It's a huge identity thing, isn't it? It's like, you said earlier something about you never told people about your job title because it just wasn't you. And it's that kind of, as a maverick, you don't need those other labels people put on yourself for you to be something. It's the labels you put on yourself, which is important. So if you put on yourself that you're going to be a world-class gymnast or whatever, then that's the one that's important, not the one that somebody else puts on. So then if you don't follow that goal, that passion, that objective, then who are you? Because it's actually, do you know what I mean? It's like, who are you anyway? You have no identity. So I think that's probably one of the reasons that Mavericks push so hard, because their identity is driven by something that they themselves have committed to themselves. And that's, they have an identity that I do that. Because when it comes to New Year's resolutions, I don't make New Year's resolutions, because for me, that sounds like, if you can get to March doing the thing you promised to do, then that's great, because come April, no one's doing it. And I don't see the point of that. What's the point of committing to do something and then you don't do it? But I will make commitments to myself, and I'm very careful as to what commitments I make. And and if I make a commitment, then it's going to happen, because I'm the person who does their commitments. So, if I make a commitment and I don't do it, it's like I don't know who I am anymore, because I said I was going to do that and I haven't done it. And I think that's the difference, is that when a maverick does commit to something, they make that commitment with care.
Very much so. Very much so. I am so careful about assuming a new role. When I'm in that role, I am in it to win it. So I have people come and say, hey, would you like to be on our organization? Would you like to sit on our board? Would you like to do all these things? And first of all, no is a full sentence for everyone who doesn't remember in this moment. No is a full sentence. Polite full sentence is thank you, no. But the reason that I frequently just need to turn away is because I know I'm in it to win it. Yeah. I will be so dedicated to that other things that need to get done, or that really I identify with, I'll struggle. And I did that. I worked the crazy hours. There was a point in time where my then boyfriend, now husband, and he's fantastic, he just very nicely said to me, I really, really care about you, and I love you, and you matter to me. And if you need to cancel another of our vacations, I'm not sure I can do this anymore. That's how much I was working, right? That's how dedicated I was to it. And so I needed to make that commitment of a healthy, long-term, both of us are fulfilled, so that we can have a fulfilled marriage. And Lord knows we still argue, we still have hard times, but that's a commitment that I made. And so when other things come in, it's like, well, I have a commitment to my clients, I have a commitment to my children, I have a commitment to my marriage, I have a huge commitment to me, because if my oxygen mask isn't on, nothing is. How does this fit in, and what would this demand of me? And no is a full sentence.
Yeah, it's a bit like, like you listen to people talk and they say, I really struggle to say no. And I look at them and I'm like, why? It's just like, if you don't want to do it, why are you doing it? I don't understand. Yes. And I think that's probably because there's a norming thing in the culture, isn't it? That, I don't want to, but I should. But I don't think Mavericks really have should in their language. Because it's a bit like Yoda, isn't it? Do or not do. It's just like, it's that kind of thing. He's like, you do it or you don't do it. But there's no in between.
Yeah, I do. I think that once we grow into, and Lord, I will always be growing into it, into this crazy intensity that I have, and this maverick joy in life that I have. And when I was coming up, there were a certain set of goals that I had. I was never going to be on welfare. My children were never going to look for coins for food. I was never going to tell my kids, are you really sick? Because I can't afford healthcare. My mom was forced to. She was forced to be in that situation. And so when somebody said to me, you should be in this group, you should take this class, you should la 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 la, because I was trying to break out and I didn't know what else was out there. It was that undoing that was so freeing for me, to the point where now I can say, yeah, there are no shoulds. I should wash my clothes, but I'd rather not wear socks. Like, that's my choice, and I live with the consequence and I move on, right? But it's for a lot of people who I relate to a lot of that, like, unpeeling of the shoulds as one becomes more successful, because to break some of those cycles, man, it's just latching on to whatever people tell you you should be doing. It's heartbreaking though when people stay
stuck
in those shoulds, yeah, and then have to make a choice at some point. Am I going to be miserable with this one gorgeous life that I have, or am I going to be brave?
I love it. And I think that's a great place to end. Well, it's great in the sense that that's a nice ending, but I could talk to you forever.
So I feel the same way.
So I'm hoping you will come back sometime, because we do have some guests that have come back a couple of times, or 3 times even sometimes. So I'd hope for you to come back, and so we get to enjoy your thoughts again.
Oh my goodness, that really would be an honor. I feel like I know you because I listen to your podcast. So I'm at a slight advantage. I would love to, and I'm super excited about the other projects you have going on. So thank you for your time and this incredible opportunity to speak directly to you and to all your listeners.
Thank you. I have certainly enjoyed you coming here, and it's brilliant because I love the way you send me an email and say, I've just listened to this podcast and I really like the way when that person was saying da, 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 da. It's just like, oh, that's really good. It's nice to know, because sometimes it's nice to know that people are responding and enjoying the conversations as much as I am at when I have these people. So no doubt there'll be people sending me notes about yours, saying how much they've enjoyed it.
Oh gosh, I'd love to hear those, or if you are able to share, I'd love to experience that. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you very much. I hope you have enjoyed listening to my conversation with Nicole as much as I enjoyed having it. If you are pathologically curious and would love to find out more about the Maverick Paradox, then please subscribe to this podcast on one of the popular podcast platforms. Alternatively, you could explore our resources on Mavericks at maverickparadox.com, or read the Maverick Paradox magazine. We publish frequently each week. If you subscribe, you will get our monthly newsletter. And let's not forget my book, The Maverick Paradox, The Secret Power Behind Successful Leaders. For those that love a good discussion, you could apply to join our exclusive Facebook group. And finally, if you would like to work with us, or just interested in finding out more about the Maverick at work, check out our website, maverickparadox.co.uk.